Hey, welcome to Bible Study. So glad that you are back with us for another day of journeying through the Gospel of Mark. I hope that you're enjoying this as much as I am, and it is amazing to me that we are already in Mark chapter 4, verses 1 through 20. If you have not joined us previously, then I also want to let you know that you can sign up for more information about what's going on with me and with our family and with the ministry that we're starting. You can sign up for all of that information at kmyoung.com/sign up. Why don't you go ahead and do it so that I don't have to keep telling it every single time that we get together. One other thing that I want to remind you of is attached to this post. There is a link to a PDF where you can download all of the readings that we're doing for Lent. Now, you don't need to feel pressure to go ahead and read back through the last 7 days of readings that you missed. Now, you can obviously do that if you want to, but why not just pick up where you are today? Most days, I don't read through the entire passage during this live Bible study. Now, yesterday, I think that I did, and that may have been the first time that I'd actually done that. So I leave a little bit on the table for you to go ahead and read on your own, such as today. We'll only go through a portion of the reading together, and then you'll do the rest of it on your own. Now, the other thing about it is these readings are very short. Getting through the book of Mark in 40 days, relatively easy. This is something that you can accomplish, and I guarantee you're not only going to feel a sense of accomplishment when you get to Easter and you've read through the Gospel of Mark, even if you've done more reading in the Gospel of Mark than you would have been unable to complete it. You're going to feel a sense of accomplishment, but you're also going to have experienced the impact of Jesus Christ within you as well. So why don't we just go ahead and jump into today's readings, where we find Jesus once again probably in or around the area of Capernaum. And so far, this is the primary place where Jesus' ministry has happened, is right there in that area of Galilee. Now, once again, Jesus began teaching by the lakeshore, that's the Sea of Galilee, and a very large crowd soon gathered around him. Now, we have seen very large crowds gather around Jesus, but this time he does something a little bit different. He gets into a boat, and then he sat in the boat while all of the people remained on the shore, and he taught them by telling them many stories in the form of parables such as this one. So up until this point in the book of Mark, we have seen Jesus experience very large crowds, people following him, gathering around him. This is the first time, though, that we have him on record as very large crowds being around, and then him teaching them. So teaching is going to be the first time that we experience that here. So let's go ahead and see what the first thing is that Mark seems to think it's important to tell us that Jesus teaches. And here we have it. Listen, a farmer went out to plant some seeds. As he scattered it across the field, some of his seed fell on the footpath, and some of the birds came and they ate it. Other seed fell on shallow soil with underlying rock. The seed sprouted quickly because the soil was shallow. So now we have two different kinds of experiences for seeds. 6, but the plant soon wilted under the hot sun, and since it didn't have deep roots, it died. Other seed fell among thorns that grew up and choked out the tender plants, so they produced no grain. So thorny ground, that's the third kind of experience that some of these seeds that were broadcast fell into. And now the fourth one. Still other seeds fell on fertile soil, and they sprouted, grew, and produced a crop that was 30, 60, and even 100 times as much as had been planted. Then he said, anyone with ears to hear should listen and understand. So what we have here essentially is 4 different types of soil. And the fourth kind of soil is the kind of soil that every farmer kind of wants. But this seems to be exceptional soil in the fourth soil, that whenever the seeds that were planted there were planted, they not only returned a yield of 1-to-1, one seed to one plant, one yield, but seems to multiply itself somehow and more than make up for the seed that was lost on the other types of ground where there really ended up being no legitimate yield. Anyone with ears to hear should listen and understand. Well, what do you want us to understand about Jesus? And that seems to be the problem that the disciples had as well. Later, when Jesus was alone with the 12 disciples and with others who were gathered around, they raised their hand and kind of broached the subject and asked, Jesus, what did that mean? And so they apparently didn't want to betray their ignorance in front of everybody whenever he was teaching it. So they kept their mouth shut. And a little bit later, when the crowd was smaller and they were alone with just a few others with Jesus, a few of them said, you know what? We have absolutely no idea what that means or how it should apply to us. And maybe you're thinking the same thing as well with those 4 types of soil. Well, here we go. The picture here, and Jesus actually goes on to explain this in the second half of our reading for today. But essentially what's happening here is that the seed is the gospel. The seed is the good news that Jesus is teaching. And the picture here, the image is of that seed of the good news being broadcast into people's hearts. And so I suppose you could say that the farmer is Jesus, and the seed is the teaching. It's the good news. And it's not being broadcast into the land as though the farmer literally is doing in the story, but it's a metaphor for it being broadcast, the good news of Jesus, into the seed bed of our hearts, of human hearts. And so this is something that Jesus is doing. Jesus is teaching. He's broadcasting good news, broadcasting seed into people and into their hearts. And we see that there are essentially, Jesus is teaching 4 different kinds of experiences of the heart. Some hearts are hard, and the good news is never able to penetrate deeply into the soil of the heart in order to grow anything good. And so even though the good news is there and has been sent into the heart of that human, it has nothing to latch onto and doesn't grow. Some is shallow. Some of the hearts that the good news is broadcast into are shallow, and it takes root for a while, but it isn't able to grow because the roots aren't able to get deep enough into the heart. Some are overcrowded. Some have so many other thorns and so many other things going on that the good news just isn't able to take hold and grow into anything worthwhile. It's choked out. Maybe it's choked out by fear. Maybe it's choked out by family. Maybe it's choked out by goals and priorities that are alternate to the good news that's being broadcast into the heart. Maybe it's to become rich, to become stable and secure. Maybe it's to become somebody, but all of these other things that are going on and in the heart of that person crowds out the good news. And some hearts are open and some hearts are deep, and that's the hope. That's the goal, right? For the person who's spreading the good news for Jesus. And that's, I think, what we want the condition of our heart to be as well. But are we willing to do the hard work to till the ground? Are we doing the hard work to pull the weeds and the thorns out? Are we doing the work in order to put our heart's seedbed into that 4th category? If not, then we may find ourselves in one of those first 3 situations. Because some people are spiritually blind and they can't see the good news, even when it's right there in front of them. Some people are spiritually deaf and can't hear the good news, no matter how many times they're told it. Some people refuse to believe in God and essentially block it out, crowd it out with other things. And I think, the interesting thing is that we're not always and only one of those 4 things. deep, good soil, thorny soil that crowds things out, shallow soil, or a hardened heart. We maybe at different points in our journey have been each of those four things, or maybe one or two at the same time. Maybe even in the same week, and maybe even sometimes in the same day. The soil of our heart changes. And so I don't think that you look at these four categories and you say, yep, that's me, always and only me. I don't think so. I think we always need to be on guard and doing the hard work in order to ensure that we are at all times 24/7, 365, that deep miracle grow kind of soil that whenever we experience good news or encounter Jesus throughout our day, that things take root and we truly see and we truly hear and we truly experience the good news. Well, I hope that's you, and I hope that you'll finish the rest of the reading for today, and I hope, if you've not already done so, that you'll run over to kmyoung.com/sign up, get your name on the list. But until we are back here again tomorrow, happy reading.